Let's talk about the business of the day as it relates to theater with your hosts, Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. Mitch, I know we're trying to work on this, but we are not naming the podcast The Business of Theater, an Awakening of Spring. It's just not going to work. It sounds too close to some other thing that might be out there, might be trying to steal focus from us, or we're drawing attention to them. I don't know, but
Well,
I don't
I,
think we
I
should
just
name it
keep
that.
looking for anything that makes me smile, and so far, no title is making me smile. Especially the Awakening of Spring.
Well, the rejected titles were also a Met Gala and the deal with James Corden. So,
and yeah, the prom and
yeah.
chorus line two.
Yes.
It just doesn't work.
This is The Business of Theater, a working title. I am your host, Darnell Radford.
I am Mitch Weiss.
So let's get down to business. So on this episode, we actually have updates for The Business of Broadway.
The
And
book
like I had promised, the book, The Business of Broadway, written by Mitch Weiss and Perry
and
Gaffney.
Perry Gaffney.
Yes, and I said before, I teased it before, that we would use the podcast as an opportunity to do those updates, which is funny because this was my idea back in 2015 when we started doing these updates.
Yeah.
We should do a podcast for all these updates, but sometimes ideas take a long time to get out of the stable. But here they are. I mean, all the all of the conversations we've had over the years that have been recorded, we should probably create a lost season or something that is everything that came before the first episode.
You're assuming anyone cares,
I
right?
don't know. There'll be a listener out there. One listener that's like, I
One
just love
listener.
your voices. Your voices. Oh my god. Yeah. Okay. So Mitch, what are the updates for the Business of Broadway for May 2022?
Well, Darnell, we have Tony season wrapping up. We have the deadline for eligibility to be nominated. That is as
Yeah.
of today. Actually, tomorrow is the deadline, and that
Yeah,
had been
as we're recording, but
postponed.
not when you listen.
That had been postponed because of the pandemic. They had so many shows opening in April. They had to give people a
Hmm.
chance to see them and review them. The nominators. Um,
Yeah.
but along with that, we've also lost a show already that just opened in April.
That's
Uh,
and it's crazy because I don't know that I even knew anything about The Little Prince, which is probably the reason it closed so quickly. I mean, not me particularly, but it was like there were so many shows that were opening, and how could anybody keep track?
well, that's the question some of us asked when they were reopening after the pandemic. Why are we throwing expensive shows to the public when there isn't enough public? There isn't enough public that has the money,
Yeah.
and it's there isn't the need. These
Yeah.
shows, some of them are excellent, and they're not going to be given a good chance because the competition is so fierce. Which, by the
Hmm.
way, we talk about the business of theater. Everybody's saying, "Oh, I'm going to put my show on now," and people are going to want to come see it. Why? I'm sorry. In New York, we have so much competition for good stuff. And if you have a whopping $200 to spend on a ticket, if you're one of those lucky people, how
Yeah.
many of those can you go to?
Yeah.
So, right? So here are 41 Broadway theaters. dozens of off Broadway theaters, another 30 or so off Broadway theaters,
Hmm.
and then you have school productions, and that's just New York.
Yeah.
So
And
who
if you
and
live in a major city, you
yeah,
can probably just stay home and there's a bunch of theater there as well.
it's also called TV and streaming and YouTube, and entertainment's everywhere. We learned about it during the pandemic. So the shame is there are some amazing shows opening this year,
Yeah.
amazing, and they're going to close.
Yeah.
Traditionally, July 4th is the first group of closings after some shows don't win the Tony Award, even if they're excellent. And then September, beginning of September, is the next group of closings.
So let me ask you this. If you're a show that opens on Broadway and let's say you close in 2 months, is it a benefit at all for you to have been on Broadway, to have opened on Broadway? And like, I'm thinking like, sometimes I'll see an artist who say that, our production has toured internationally, which means they went to Edinburgh Fringe, you know, but it's like it has this like cachet. Whether a production has staying power on Broadway or not, is there some sort of cachet that they can sort of ride off of because they opened on Broadway?
The answer is with everything else, it depends. There are shows that make, especially if we're talking financially, there are
Hmm.
shows that are done by high schools and colleges and regional theaters, and they are known to those places only because it opened on Broadway and got some interesting reviews. And during Tony season, a lot of professors come to New York to see these shows so they can try to be hip the next year in what their school is going to be doing. So, yeah, but how much can you really make financially as a producer from the royalties from high schools and colleges and regional theaters? Because every time you
Yeah.
go out on tour, first it costs money to set up the tour. So you
Hmm.
again still need cash flow. It's expensive. But then if there are certain shows that do very well on the road. Some shows never get to Broadway, they just stay on the road. So it depends. That's my answer and I'm sticking to it. So
Unless you're Be More Chill, because Be More Chill was in high schools before it got to
it,
Broadway.
it was, and it was off Broadway and sold out. And the second it got to Broadway, it was sort of the Peter principle. It petered out.
Yeah.
There weren't
Yeah.
enough people, especially students. Who's got the money to pay for a full price ticket for a show about high school kids that adults weren't appreciating as much?
True. But I did appreciate the Broadway casting, though.
Yeah, okay.
Um, you
That's
know,
one of the greatest things about Broadway. We get the best casts, the best designers. It's phenomenal. That's why it's worth going to for me. Anyway,
yes.
so did I
All right.
avoid answering that question? Um,
No, you said it depends, and I get that because it does, But I'm just wondering, like, eh, I don't know what was that. What was that young girl's name? When uh when Legally Blonde the musical went through that whole MTV reality special
right.
just to find the next Elle Woods.
Hmm.
I think her name was Bailey or something. She was like 19, and she, you know, she she won the reality show and then got the role, and then the show closed in like 2 months or something like
Yeah.
that.
Well,
And
it's
I,
hard. I've had that horror of working my butt off literally 20 hours a day for months and then
mhm.
getting to opening night and closing the next day.
Yeah, yeah,
It
man.
hurts, and it's exhausting. And then you need a
Yeah.
vacation, but you haven't made enough money to take a vacation.
No, no. And isn't that crazy? It- How is it that the work we do, period? I mean, not specifically theater work, but just the work we do is so draining, so exhausting that you need a vacation you can't afford.
Well, you want a political answer to that? The unions, who I'm in the minority on this. Okay. Here goes. They almost never negotiate working conditions. They
Mm,
negotiate for more money. And the
hmm,
idea is, if you're going to kill me by making me work long hours and stressing me out, I need to pay my bills. And my argument
yeah,
is, why not both? Why not say, I'll
yeah,
take a little bit less of an increase in money, but let me go home and have dinner?
yeah,
And
yeah,
nobody negotiates for that, because it's theater and we're
yeah.
supposed to love it. It's supposed to be our
I
life.
mean, see, that's always been my mindset. I mean, maybe because I ride these lines, I'm not just a theater artist. I can also work outside of this
Right,
industry.
right.
And I do think about sometimes, the salary isn't there, where I would want it to be, but then I think about the benefits that come with it. Maybe it's only a mile from my house and I can walk there even in bad weather. Okay,
Mm.
that's a good trade-off. Or there's usually when you work in a cultural organization, especially a place that has rentals, there's almost always food on
Yeah.
site somewhere. Wait, we might be able to eat today if we come to work. Okay, good.
Yeah, yeah.
There were things I thought about over the years where it was like, whatever you said the salary was on my acceptance letter, which by the way is not the actual take home pay anyway. Once
That's
the
correct.
taxes come out, you take home far less than that. And many people don't even realize that they're fighting for a salary, but they don't know what the actual take home pay is going to be.
And
So you do have to think about all those other things.
you can vary the take home pay depending on the deductions, but how most
Yeah.
people don't know how to calculate that, which is what the managers can help you with if you ask them.
Hmm.
But most people
Yeah.
are embarrassed to say, I don't really understand what comes out of my paycheck, because we don't teach that in school. That's
show
where
show me how my
college.
money moves. I need to know.
Oh, college, I'm sorry. I am, even high school, I am so disgusted with what they don't teach us. Some schools do,
And
though.
that's why
There,
we
there
should
are a few.
cancel student that's why we should cancel student debt.
Well,
What a racket.
the question is, and I don't want to get myself in trouble, but the students who go to acting school at a college and incur the debt that they would have if they were going for pre med, it's like, which one's going to pay back?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And it's like, theater, yes, you should have skills and you should study, but do you need a college for that? Ooh, now
Mhm.
going, you want to get liberal arts, that's fine, but study
Well, I
something
feel
that can
like
pay you back.
yeah. I feel like and someone posted this. It said something to the effect of so you can't you can't get approval for a small business loan, but you can get approved for a student loan,
Mm,
and it's not even a guarantee that you that you will walk away with a meaningful job on the
right.
other side. So yeah, I feel like a lot of people had ideas before they entered into college, and if anyone told them, the process of, because I guess now the mindset, do we really need brick and mortar to run a business? Like, I mean with
Well, in some
technology,
cases you do, and we're in the theater, so the
yeah,
idea.
but technically, if I started a theater company at 19, let's see, if I started a theater company at 19, I could have rented a theater space. I could have secured liability insurance or event insurance,
Hmm.
temporary insurance, or depending on the space that I would rent, you know, the rental fee might allow me to ride on their insurance. So those things could be done without me having a physical office somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
Not only
yeah.
that, you brought up a very good point. One of the um, important lessons, which again we don't teach, um, the amazing producer Joseph Papp, uh, who was a political genius, not just having to do with theater. He negotiated um, the rights to a library in the East Village and here in New York, and said, "I will convert them. I'll raise the money, and I will convert them into 5 or 6 theaters, off Broadway theaters, um, and I will." Um, because the library was closed, and who knows what would have happened to it.
Hmm.
He negotiated a 99-year lease from New York City at $1 a year. And then, of course, that got
Wow.
renewed. So his entire mortgage and or rent is $1 every year.
Hmm.
And he can take all that nonprofit money, which of course he also had a chorus line in For Colored Girls and Pirates of Penzance and on and on. He made lots of money on Broadway. All that money goes back into theater. And
Hmm.
almost, and yes, you have to upkeep the building, but that's a lot different than paying rent and mortgage in the middle of New York City. It is that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
genius that people who want to run their own theater need to be thinking about.
Hmm.
Because once you get stuck, the great news is, oh, now I'm going to get this wrong. I think it's Yale Rep. Am I wrong? Is Yale Rep, which is in New Haven, they have chosen to give up their physical theater. And they now
Hmm.
plan to come up with a method of just renting show by show. And that is helping their budget move forward. Brilliant. I think we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, we need more people thinking outside the box.
Yeah. And once those ideas reach some point of fruition, I guess, they need to share that knowledge.
Yes, yes. Well,
Let people
that's a
know.
whole nother problem. And these
Yeah.
board of trustees or board of directors of these nonprofits, it's thrilling that they're willing to give up their money and participate and make sure that no one's stealing the money and
Hmm.
have ideas and stuff. But they really need to expect more from their artistic directors and managing directors to think outside the box. They need to say, gee,
Yeah.
I'm glad we're doing the same shows that everyone else does around the country, but in our town. So I'll give you money. It's like, really?
It's the
Really?
top 20. It's the top 20 on the front page, front page of the website where we bought these scripts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's okay. It's running in Kansas, so we can run it. We can run it.
there
Yeah.
you go.
I don't know.
Anyway,
Okay.
so we do have the other update. Um, I'd say 50% of all the new shows on Broadway during their previews and or opening nights had to shut down because of COVID backstage.
Hmm.
And the fact that nobody planned on this, nobody understood that when you have people running around in close quarters, unlike the audience was fine. They're wearing masks, they're vaccinated, they're boosted, and they're sitting there in one place, and everyone on stage is huffing and singing, and the stage crew are running around. I mean, come on. And, and then they're going out and home to Brooklyn. What were they expecting? So it's a
Yeah.
horror.
I
It's
mean,
a horror, but I mean, everything's back on. I'm, pleased. Everyone's pleased to see the shows back in, but that they risked people's health in order to do this. It's an important story, I think. Anyway, are we having
yes.
fun yet? No, we're not.
Yes.
Yes.
These are all updates. Hey, if you're reading the book, if you read the book, these
Hmm.
updates are for you. Okay.
There you go.
Where are we? Where are we on the updates? Did we?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Some of these were stories about. For example, there have been Broadway shows in which there were 5 to 7 understudies who had not been rehearsed, who, in order to keep the show running, the producers put them on stage and people paid their $200 plus to see them.
Oh
And
man.
so, and they were some of them were magnificent. Don't get me wrong. The understudies are usually brilliant, even
Oh,
without
I
rehearsal.
just mean the rush. I mean the last minute of it.
The
It's
wardrobe
crazy.
people
Like,
have to redo the outer costumes to make
mm-hmm.
sure they're fitting. They have to come up. None of this has been rehearsed because they're just in previews and they're just getting ready.
Oh,
I mean, these are stories to themselves. And then the audience sits there, and in the case of one thing, there's an understudy who was 28 years old taking the role of a leading performer who was 60 years old.
hmm.
It's just not
What are
right.
we in high school?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And that's part of the updates. I mean, the details are in there. I don't want to put it on the podcast because the show's good.
Yeah.
And, we're not trying to hurt anybody. But this is, I mean, yes, it's exciting. That's the factor of it being live. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's still wrong.
And like I said that time I saw Hamilton and they had to hold the show, that was a moment that the audience got to experience uniquely, and it doesn't matter how much we talk about it. No one else is going to experience
That's
it
right.
like that. And that was a moment that sort of brought the audience together, I think, because we had 5 minutes in the middle of a show that we all love. It wasn't even the middle, it's like the earlier part of the show, but we're all just kind of talking, like, and then you start to look around and see where all the insiders are, and they're having conversations about, like, yeah, anything can and will
That's
happen.
right.
It always does. What? Is that how it works? Now tell me, like, have you ever had an experience like this? Well, yes, I have. This one time. Okay, we're back.
You got it. Well, and in just making a quick list, because my stories can go on forever. I've I've
Yeah.
had to deal with during intermission, a nun in full habit had a heart attack in the lobby. I had to deal with that and get the show back on. I had an actor
Wow.
in scene 3 on an opening night have a heart attack on stage. We had to bring
Oh,
the curtain
wow.
down, get him to the hospital, put the understudy on, and continue the show because the critics were in the audience. I had a flood, the ceiling leaked onto the seats where 3 critics were during opening night. And we had
Mm.
to move them, which meant we had to kick other people out of their seats because it was sold out. It's opening night. And we had to move the critics in and apologize and tell these people we'll get you back in some other time. And we had to play that game. I had a gentleman who snuck into the theater drunk because he didn't act that way, and he threw up on the
Oh.
lady in front of him
Oh my God.
in her mink stole on her 10th anniversary.
Of course it was a Ming stole. Of
Right,
course.
right. I mean, it goes
Who owns
on.
a Ming stole still?
It goes on and on. The stories, I mean, and that is part of what's live. That's in the audience part. On stage, things
Oh
happen.
my God. Last night we watched on YouTube, because YouTube has a bunch of um movies and shows that you can watch. We watched The Play That Goes Wrong, Peter Pan. And there's a moment where, the fly system is going all crazy,
Mhm.
and Peter Pan literally falls from the sky. and and they are super serious because the way he
Right.
fell was like so funny, because of how fast, and like, even though it was clearly, staged, but they had to figure out what they were going to do without it, and they kept calling on the narrator to fill in,
Uh,
and he tells a
let's
totally different
let's
story.
let's give our unsolicited review. The play that goes wrong. If you are a theater person, it is the funniest show.
Wonderful,
It
wonderful.
almost as funny as Act Two of Noises Off,
Yeah,
except
isn't it off Broadway right now?
it's off Broadway. It's still playing,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I
it
saw
is
it when it was
worth
on Broadway.
every
We had a good
moment.
time.
It is worth
Hmm.
every moment. What a
Yeah,
wonderful show. Um,
there's and you can't. It's hard to tell when it starts too
mhm.
because the curtain is open. They're setting things up, but it's clear that things aren't working outright. They were looking for a dog at one point, I think. And they're up we were up in the balcony, and they're up in the balcony like, "Hey, has anybody seen," and I think the sound guy is also in the balcony, or at least near us. But yeah, I loved it. I
Yeah,
thought it was amazing. I
I
was
was
like, I
so
can't
surprised.
tell what part of this is real or not.
Yeah, and that's it. I had no idea what to expect. I went very like the second week of its previews, and I'm just going because it's a new show and someone said you might enjoy it. I was
There is a
rolling in the
series.
aisles. It was wonderful.
Yes,
It was
there
wonderful.
is a series. It only had one season,
Really.
or at least there's one season available in the U.S. At least. You can get the first season. It's called the Goes Wrong Show.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm talking about the
Yeah.
theater show.
Oh yeah, but same people.
Yeah, I know.
It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same ensemble. Anyway, it was great. And I think those are fun too because there's a there's a balance of things that we're looking for. Some people want to be challenged. Some people want to escape. They just want to laugh. Some people just want to sing their favorite songs.
Mhm.
So there's a good balance of that on all stages most of the time, which is really good.
I have to tell
You
you,
know.
one of the wonderful moments. I do forget what show it was, but I do know it happened to be at the Lunt-Fontanne Theater. The police force in the Times Square area, this is pre World Trade Center attacks.
Hmm.
We knew as managers and staff, we knew every cop on the beat. They would stop in, is everything all right? We knew their first names. They would check in. It was a family. And they would show up in the middle of some part of the show, just walk in backstage, and then they'd stand in the back of the house singing along with the shows. It's like
That's
they
great.
got it. These are
Yeah.
policemen. These are not theater folk, and it was such joy to have them in the theater. Of course,
Hmm.
the horror is we lost most of them during the World Trade Center attack. So it's a whole new
Uh,
group. I mean, they're still wonderful. Yeah, I didn't mean to imply that, but
yeah.
it hurt even more because they were family. And the same thing with the
I
fire
was.
department in the area. They used to show up and give us hell
Hmm.
5 minutes before the show was starting. Prove to us that this building is not going up on fire and you've done everything the law tells you you're supposed to do. And we had it
You're at
down.
capacity.
Yeah. Well, we had it down.
There's
We had a
six
system. We had
six extra people in here.
um,
Shh.
but they were wonderful, and we lost 100% of them at the World Trade Center
Uh,
attack. It was scary. It was awful. Anyway,
I always want. I always wonder how those officers who are stationed in Times Square feel because it's a sideshow
yeah,
all day,
all day long.
and sometimes they're standing right in front of like some crazy performance, and I'm just like, is this the best place to be? Are they over it? Like, it's entertaining because I don't know how long they have to be here.
Hmm.
They might just be annoyed by this, but yeah, I always wonder that about them. Somebody should write a play about uh, the police officers who work in Times Square.
Interesting. It hasn't been done that I'm aware of.
Hmm. I don't
Hmm.
know. It should
Hmm.
be called Copper.
Copper, the musical.
Copper, the musical. No, a play with music.
A play, yeah.
It'll be a play with music because the random things that
Maybe we're
happen.
giving someone the idea, and luckily it's impossible to trademark an idea or a title, so we're stuck. They can steal it from us.
What do you think we should do? Should we kick around play ideas in future episodes?
Only if they come naturally.
Okay.
You know, the problem is there are too many bad ideas out there now. I read the script. Someone had written a musical, and without going into any detail, it was well written, but the topic for me was completely uninteresting. But they
Hmm.
did a great job with it, and the music was hip hop, pop, and very upbeat and really exciting. And I just went, I'd probably really enjoy this. But
Hmm.
the idea, who cares? And that's a lot of the problem, I think, um, with people who write things. I'd be one of those people saying, "You are not writing Mamma Mia. No one
Hmm.
wants to hear this story," and put a bunch of ABBA songs to it. And I would have been very wrong, wouldn't I?
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah, and like what was the marketing machine like, you know? Did they have any idea of the staying power of Mamma
no,
Mia?
I know they didn't. It was a surprise, but and I'll be honest with you. When I first saw it, I was not impressed. I mean, it was okay. I enjoyed it, but I didn't think it was as big
Yeah.
as it would be. And this is a case where the movie helped the aura of the play. They kind
Mm.
of fed off of each other, and
Yeah.
my understanding is the movie is the number one movie musical of all time financially,
Oh. Hmm.
which is scary. But that
Well,
if
not until these two parts of Wicked come.
there you go, that's right.
Something wicked this way
It's going to
comes.
be interesting. It's similarly to Cabaret, where the movie was very different than the musical on stage. They
Mm.
rewrote that script
Yeah.
top to bottom. I have a feeling the Wicked scripts are going to be very different. I mean, it has to tell the same
And I
story,
I
obviously.
wonder if they'll go back to the books,
Yeah.
and I wonder if they'll go back and build on that because there are several other books revolved around that as well.
Hmm.
I always forget their names when I think about it because
Oh, the
I have
names of
them
the
all
books?
in the names of the
Oh yeah,
books.
I
Yeah.
don't remember.
Yeah, I always forget, but it just seems like they could build a whole world. That also could have been a TV series too. Kind of like what was it called? Once Upon a Time
Oh yeah. Well, but as we've noticed, a lot of
on
musical ideas do not translate to television very well, or haven't. I'm not going to say
yeah.
they can't. They just haven't.
Well, maybe they were before their time, perhaps.
I think they were after their time.
I do remember seeing I do remember the first episode of Glee was put out I think it was like the end of the it was like the spring uh before it came out in the fall.
Hmm.
Like the first episode because the first episode ended with "Don't Stop Believing," and I just remember thinking it was really campy, but it stuck with me, and I was like,
Yeah, but
I feel
you're a
like
theater nerd, Darnell. Most of America. And by the way, talking about updates, let's say this real fast. The Tony Awards on television are the lowest rated
mm,
special every single year in the United States. It's New
mm,
York and LA are the only people that watch it, and then some
even with
people
Neil Patrick Harris,
that what?
even with Neil Patrick
Thank
Harris
you.
as the host,
Yeah, well,
I
that
know,
is the
yeah.
best opening number ever created.
However, his opening numbers were
Yeah,
amazing.
best ever. They
Yes,
were.
I like the. I don't know. It wasn't. I don't know if it was the first one, but I like the one where the opening number ends with "That's our budget. Good night."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is the best
uh,
one, um, and that's the thing. There's still the feeling that this is our club. This is for people in the theater, and that's
yeah.
part of why I think it doesn't have as much appeal. But we also need to get more people in the theater or doing theater so that they fall in love with it. It's just a medium that doesn't reach the same place that movies do.
Do you think? Do you think there is? Well, I mean, I guess there isn't considering the ratings and the fact that New York is struggling on its own. Like, I just wonder. Like sometimes it's because Broadway is all the way over here in New York, and then what else is there in between New York and LA at that level? Like you
Touring,
can't.
we've got Broadway houses in every major or minor city. The tours that go out, I think the musical has six different companies playing right
Mhm.
now, and they're in various
Yes,
places. And not everyone can travel to New York, nor do they want to.
but for the non-theater goer, if
Mhm.
they don't hear Broadway West or Broadway Mid East or Broadway Pacific or something, like I feel like we're on the inside.
Yeah,
Like so we will go see it. We will go see it, but it just feels like people need they need that sort of
they may.
buzzwording,
They want the West
to
End in London. There's Broadway and the West End, and everything else is secondary.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's a shame, but it also makes us feel exclusive, right?
Yeah. That's not to diminish the value of regional
No,
theater
not in the
because
least.
it is wonderful, but I'm just saying like the way that people are easily sort of, you know, they don't always think.
Well, I also
They don't always think that deeply about it.
the other
They
thing
might.
though, it's not just New York. I mean, it's obviously different, but places like Chicago, which have amazing theaters that do
Mhm.
original works that some
Yeah.
of which would easily win Best Play at the Tony Awards, but will never make it to New York. We have to
Mm.
give them their props. And, they have their own
Yeah.
awards. Philly, DC, the Kennedy Center does amazing work, as do a lot of the other theaters, Arena Stage. The Guthrie in Minneapolis. Oh my God, what an amazing theater. Actors
You're writing these
Theater
down,
of
right? But you
Louisville.
already know.
I'm
These
sorry.
listeners already know. I said, are the listeners writing these down? But they already
They
know.
know if they're in that area, they know their theaters. And
Yes.
there are hundreds of them. The issue always becomes what kind of quality designers and actors and directors, quality may be the wrong word, with budgets can
Hmm.
they do so that you're not just using high school flats when you're designing, a set, and you're not just
Yeah.
saying, hey, let's raid people's home closets and adjust it a little bit to get a costume. Um,
Yeah.
a lighting designer working with a costume designer can make your eyes bulge. It's spectacular. The Tina Turner story, when those lights change and she walks out in that shimmering dress and the stairs
Hmm.
move and everything's happening at once, your mouth drops. You don't even know your mouth is dropping. You can't
Yeah.
do that everywhere, and nor do people know how to without some money
Yeah. Yeah.
and talent. And that's,
Where do we get that money?
well, yeah, listen, we
Where do
invite,
we get that money post? Where do we get that money post pandemic?
or even, I've been invited to two presentations here in New York of new musicals in the works
Hmm.
where they spent probably 85 thousand to $100,000 on a one-time little presentation in a room with no set, but full orchestrations and weeks of rehearsal. And when it was all over, I didn't care about the show. But the
Mm.
presentation was amazing. And I hate to bring it back, but that's my argument about, my company, The Farm, and that we're saying, no, no, slow it down. We don't need to spend the money on that stuff. You need to make sure the show is
Hmm.
worth it first.
Yeah.
But then where does the money come from after that? A lot of people with
Hmm.
money want the glitz, and they're buying the production rather than the show. And it's a very difficult business that way, right? The people I
Hmm.
know with money aren't necessarily, or usually are never, the creative people who know why they're doing what they're doing. So,
Yeah.
as Sondheim said, it's the art of making art. Yeah. Oh, gee, here
I
we are
know,
back to fun. Um,
but we love it.
we
We
do.
can't get enough of it.
Well, when it works, there's nothing better.
Yes. Do we have any more updates?
Well, there was just this cute little thing that, but that somebody. Library of Congress, Neil Simon. Those, yeah, I bet you most people in our listening group don't even know who he is. He wrote tons of comedies at a time where comedies were a little more innocent. Things like The Sunshine Boys and The Odd Couple. Um, Basically, every line was a gag joke. I mean, it was funny stuff.
Mm.
Um, but in the updates, we have a typewritten letter from Neil Simon to Bob Hope, in which he turned down Bob, and Bob Hope, by the way, for those who didn't know it, he hosted the Oscars for, I think it was 18 years. And he
Mm.
was a movie star and a comedian and had TV shows. I know people.
I know.
I spoke to
It's
someone today who
crazy.
never heard of the character Archie Bunker or the TV show All in the Family. Never heard of it,
Oh my.
and they're in their 30s. It's
Yeah.
where let's go back to, hey, history matters. It really does.
Yes.
You want to go into theater, study a little bit of it. Go see some standards, some classics. Figure out who these people were because it'll help you in your career. Anyway, um, it's a letter. You can see it if you go to our updates about how Neil Simon um, hilariously and diplomatically turned down a superstar's request to perform with Bing Crosby, the guy who sang White Christmas,
Hmm.
in a comedy. So that's on there, and I don't know. The rest of it, a little bit about opening nights and the Tony Awards because they've all been affected by COVID.
Did I tell you my Bing Crosby story?
No.
So in high school, for all the Christmas plays, I mean all the plays we produced in the fall,
Mm-hmm.
of for the Christmas themed plays, I would always open them with Christmas in Killarney.
Oh God.
It just, I don't know, it just had a jaunty tune. I don't know, and I can't remember why, but it just felt like the thing to
I
do.
wonder what effect that had on a member of the audience that you don't even know it had that effect. You may have changed someone's life by playing that music. And
Yeah, I mean, well, I didn't open every song. I think the first play we did, it was it was a high school ish edition play. It was called Bang Goes Christmas. And
you're talking
it's
about,
like
does it have to be on Broadway for it to have a life? There you go.
no, it doesn't. But that show, I that was the first show I used Christmas in Killarney, but then the rest of them, it was in the opening, it was in the pre-show music.
Okay. Why not?
Yeah, it
Why not?
was fun.
Um, well, there were a lot of topics we had talked about, possibly talking about, but maybe we'll save them for next time.
Yeah, but well, what have you been up to this week? What did you
I've
do?
been
I mean, you
having
talked about
argument.
some.
I've actually been having debates with fellow colleagues about when you are trying to sell a well written new play, is it absolutely necessary that you miscast one of the roles with a celebrity just to attract the right producers to come see it? Or is
Mm,
it, do you just get the
yeah,
best actors that you know are absolutely appropriate, who have already done it and proven how well they can do it, and just say, hey, if the producer doesn't
yeah,
show up, it's their problem. The show's good. So we're battling that one out. I have mixed feelings on it.
yes.
As we know on Broadway, if you're going to sell the Music Man for the 900th revival, you have to get someone like Hugh Jackman, because why else would anyone? And not, it's a wonderful show, don't get me wrong, but it's dated. It has issues that they've had to rewrite because in our current day they're a little out, shall we say, not PC, and
Mhm.
they
Yes.
they need to convince people that this is more important than going to see Hamilton, right? Um, and that's an issue all the time on
Yeah.
Broadway. The tickets are expensive. So I don't know the answer. I
Hmm.
do know I have my
And and so and I understand both sides of that argument
right.
too. But the thing is, if the star is not coming along with that piece, then does it matter?
Well, the star could. I'm sure if the someone wants to take this play and produce it, they could ask the star. The problem is if the star is not particularly right for the role, you got them in the room, but are they going to ask them? And then you've now put a
Yeah,
star in a bad
is that
position.
your reason for but is that your reason for even inquiring about it? Because if you are a company who has you know actors that you love to work with that are great collaborators, but you're looking for new work, you know, do you need this?
Well,
Is Are you going to be concerned?
you've said the key. Are producers looking for new work? The answer is no. They trip
Hmm,
over it. Someone tricks them into it. They have disposable income, and they like to be um, the savior's the wrong word. They like to be the producer, and there's no question if you think something's wonderful, and you want to be the one to bring it to light. But
yeah.
they aren't necessarily looking to throw millions of dollars, which they have to raise, at something where they're enough so to say, I'm going to read scripts that people bring me. They don't. They wait for a
Well, I know
friend
that.
to tell them, I've already seen or read something that I think is the most amazing thing I've seen in years. That's the one they'll read.
Hmm.
To having
Well, I
you,
know it seems like there's a rush. I mean, there used to be, or it always seemed like there was a rush to be the world premiere, and then like the National New Play Network, was doing these rolling world premieres
Mhm,
where a handful of companies kind of get to say that they are a part of this world premiere kind of tour,
right.
to introduce this piece to the world, and that kind of gave the piece more life. Because if you're just rushing to be, what if you're a small company and you don't have the resources to do, to put on the show at the level that maybe the world premiere really deserves, um you might see this and say, no, because of their production of it, and
Well,
maybe
now you're hitting on a
it's not
topic that I
enough.
think is close to home for all of us. because we don't
Mm,
have personal money, and we don't, for the most part, except when I'm on Broadway, I'm not working with people with money. So, how do you do, what's the quality work? What's the importance of why you're doing it? And
yeah.
each of us has to, it's not ethical. It has nothing to do with being ethical. It, what's the inspiration? What's the goal? Why are you doing theater? Do you, if you're in a professional theater with no money, do you put on Hello Dolly because people will buy tickets? Or do you say, I'm putting on an original show and there may only be three people in the audience, but I know this show is phenomenal and someone needs to see it? That's the hard
Mm.
question because money talks in America.
And is there a level that's more or less ideal?
Yeah,
So, for instance, here, you know, it would be a huge risk for a Walnut Street theater to mount a brand new show that no one knows anything about,
without a
you know,
celebrity in it.
versus with, yeah, without a draw, like,
Hmm.
unless it was buried in the middle of the season and saying, like, you have to, it's kind of like the fall of malls, of shopping malls.
Right,
It's like, we have these anchors that are the reason for you to come, and then everything in between is, you can take it or leave it.
right. And yet, during a pandemic, as has happened, malls have fallen away. Now, some of them are coming
Yeah.
back, but there's damage along the way. And so we've lost a
Mm-hmm.
lot of smaller nonprofit theaters during the pandemic. And those who have survived are struggling financially, maybe because, I'm going to make this my personal opinion, most of them don't understand their own mission. They
Mm.
think they're just putting on theater because, well, we're in, and forgive me, Omaha. Omaha has some great theater, by the way. I don't want to knock them down. But hey, we're in Omaha. We don't have to think about um, trying to help creative people or trying something new. We just have to bring some entertainment so people will buy a ticket. That's,
Yeah.
well, if you're nonprofit, you shouldn't be thinking only about money. But that's easy for me to say, isn't it? You know.
Well, I always ask on one of the many podcasts I am the host of, I will always ask, about what is the urgency of bringing this to the stage right now.
Mhm.
I want to find the relevance of today, right now, because even if you decided years ago that you wanted to do this and you just got the rights, you still have to find the relevance to place it into your season in a time that makes sense, or to line it up. You're telling a story from you're telling an overall story with your season from the first show of the season to the last. And so I always ask that question because I think it's valuable for people to understand that right now, if this show is about Christmas, and that's why it's in December.
Mhm.
you know, we it doesn't really make sense to do a Christmas themed show in May, maybe in July because of the Christmas in July sort of thing, but it's going to be a stretch
Yeah.
there to be like, no, this is about young love. Okay, but it's it's setting as Christmas, and you're producing it in May. Well, we couldn't get the theater until May. Well,
Well, except you know what the irony of that is. Look at Hallmark, Hallmark Channel. They do
uh-huh.
Christmas in July. They play
Yes.
all of their Christmas movies in July. It's a brilliant marketing thing. It becomes an um, an issue for them. I mean, not a festival in a sense, and people
Yeah.
go for it. It gives them a reason. But you do, that is about press and marketing, and whatever show you
Hmm.
have, people don't come unless you tell them why. And
Yeah.
part of the difficulty is when you think you have a wonderfully written show that impacts people, but you can't explain it in a sentence or two to explain to them why, without knowing how wonderful the show is, they ought to buy a ticket. And
Hmm.
that's where most shows flop, right?
Yeah.
And advertisement's expensive, so you really need to figure this out. It's tricky. And most marketing people in nonprofits are young with very little experience. They're willing to give it a
Hmm.
try, and they make best efforts, but they don't have the expertise of people who will say your title is wrong. No one's going to come see a title that says um, my nose has snot in it. Well, actually, that may work. That you know, but
Are you going to see My Nose Has Snot in It?
right,
I hear
that's at least
I
something.
hear it's the show of the
Yeah,
season. Life changing.
and then
Changing of
you can see the
lives.
reviews. It blows. Right,
Your life will be
right.
changed. I know.
Yeah,
That's but see, that's good marketing. Come see our show. It blows. And they'll be like, let's get 4
yeah,
tickets. They got a family pack here, you know?
yeah.
You got this family
But
pack.
so many titles are so uninteresting, because they're
Yeah.
always trying to say, I'm trying to be poetic with the show I wrote. Who cares? Give me a reason to want to go see it in the title because I don't know it. I'm not reading anything about your show. I'm just deciding whether or not it's an interesting title.
One of the earlier plays that I wrote was about a is about a I had ideas, so I would just write like a general idea that I could get go back
Mm-hmm.
to. And so I said, um, I'm going to write a play called This Play Contains Immediate Nudity.
There you go.
and the main character is on stage wearing only a sombrero. And go. How did he get there? You know, there's a there's a greater idea there, but I was thinking fringe gimmick because like it's funny because the fringe shows, like if there's nudity on your poster, people will
Oh yeah.
probably come to
Well,
the show.
the for a while, the longest running show in Broadway history was "O Calcutta," which was
Mm,
100% naked. It played in the
mm,
smallest Broadway house, which doesn't exist anymore, the Edison, um,
hmm,
and it ran forever. This is pre Cats, but so it was a small theater, but it was a bunch of vignettes in which in every vignette the actors were naked, and it just sold out forever. What am I going
hmm.
to say? It works, right? Hair,
Yeah.
which was the first big Broadway musical with nudity in it. The nudity was at the end of Act One, and it was dark. They were very careful about it. And people who were outraged that there was nudity on stage in a musical, they showed up, they bought a ticket, they sat through Act One, waited to see the nudity, then outraged, they walked out during intermission, right?
Mm.
But they bought a ticket. They just stayed away from Act Two.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for your
Thank
money.
you. Nobody cared.
No refunds. I'm sorry. The box office is closed. There really isn't a way
That's
for us
right.
to give you your money back. I'm so
That's it.
sorry. I mean, they just left. They just left.
That's
They
actually that was a great
just
excuse.
left.
Elaine Stritch had a one woman show on Broadway that I worked on, and curtain goes up. There's Elaine Stritch sitting in a chair, talking to the audience, and she fumbles like the second line, and this is her story, right? And she
Hmm.
looks a little disoriented, and all of a sudden they drop the curtain on her. So I run backstage. It seems that she's having a diabetic moment. She had not had her dinner, and she was a
Hmm.
diabetic who took insulin. So ran back out to the audience. There, what's wrong? What's wrong? Is the show going on? Blah blah blah. And people are already starting to ask for their money back. I say, no, she's gonna. I'm being told the show's gonna go on. Just hang on a few minutes. Well, 20 minutes go by. Now the box office is closed, and no one's getting their money back on the spot. And people are yelling. People, a handful, less than a dozen, are arguing they want their money back and they're leaving because they're going to miss their train. It's all right. We'll give you your
Hmm.
money back, but you're going to have to contact us the next day. Well, the curtain went up. She did her entire show. People went crazy over it because it was wonderful. And that was the end of that. So, you always have to have those people who have no patience and don't care about it being live. And I completely forgot why we brought this up.
Well, I want to thank the listeners for their
Yes,
patience
really.
in listening
I
to us
apologize already.
as we ramble about the business. If you want to read the updates to the Business of Broadway by Mitch Weiss and Perry Gaffney, these will be in the very same feed that the Business of Theater is published in on our website, and there'll be a link on the front page. You can get to that as we rambled all around this. If you just want to read it out loud, but Mitch, another great chat about the business. Thank you all for your tuning in. Mitch, thank you for the sending the
Yeah,
fire
and
company
Darnell, as they
along
say,
with the
we could do it without them, but why? Right?
yeah, you know, we're doing this for you. And if you weren't here, we'd do it for you
That's it.
anyways.
Hey, we like talking to each other.
Yes, we do. But we would love for you to be a part of the conversations. You can go to our website, em3ry.com, and click on our contact link and tell us what you think about the podcast or any of the podcasts, really. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from you. We're also on all the social channels, all the ones that matter, I guess. Do any of them matter?
That's a good
Do any
question.
of them
That's a
matter?
big question.
Anyway, that is this week's episode of the Business of Theater. I'm Darnell Radford,
Mitch Weiss.
and we'll see you at the theater.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time for another episode of The Business of Theater, a working title, with Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Share the podcast with a friend, colleague, or give us some social media love. This podcast is an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com/TBOT. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at em3ryotm.